Hey guys, so I'm super excited for this video today. We finally got the entire Mega Evolution TCG set revealed, and there's some pretty interesting cards, especially the trainers, and we also got confirmation that a few classic cards are getting reprinted, and I just wanted to take a look at how all of this combines and see what our metagame could look like moving forward. So let's just dive into here and talk about the Cinderace line. So, first of all, I'm just going to be clear, I'm not going through every single card that was unveiled. I'm just going through the ones that kind of piqued my interest. And to be clear, this is one of the ones that kind of interested me, although I don't know how good it is. I think I was just kind of drawn to this given the fact that, one, it is a fire Pokemon, so it does hit for weakness on some things in the metagame. But also on top of that, all of its attacks are colorless. So you're kind of getting access to that fire type without having to worry about fire type acceleration. Reboot the stage 1. It has, for one colorless, it does 40 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. So this is good to snipe a Budew on the bench, or just put some damage on a place where you need to fix math for later. So maybe you add this to Camerupt, because Camerupt kind of has that like weird tier of like one-shotting a lot of the smaller things, but like not quite being there for the more important things. You just have to be careful though, because unfortunately we are in a Munkidori's world. So, you know, just putting 40 damage on something, you're just enabling your opponent's Munkidori to do a lot of damage back at you. The Cinderace is also pretty interesting because its ability explosiveness, if this Pokemon is in your hand when you're setting up play, not in your hand on their first turn, just setting up play, you may place it face down on your active Pokemon. Now, its attack is also pretty interesting. For one colorless energy, you do 50 damage, and you get to search your deck for up to 30 basic energy cards and attack them to your bench Pokemon in any way you like. The really cool thing about this is that it doesn't have to be fire type. I mean, that's pretty good acceleration. We see things like Flareon EX be played, which helps accelerate energies. You have to evolve into that as well, and it's an EX, so you're giving up 2 prize cards if that gets killed. I don't know, guys. This seems pretty good. I think it's a shame it's on a stage 2, but I think that's like the only way to balance this if it's not going to be on an EX Pokemon. I'm not entirely sure how good this will be, but you know, one thing to keep in mind is that this is a fire Pokemon, which hits for weakness for, you know, a few things that are in the metagame right now. And I would be interested to see if that gets splashed into any other archetypes, I should say. So let's talk about the Lunatone and the Solrock. So the Lunatone was already announced a few days ago, and I did a video on this as well, so I'm not going to go super deep into, you know, the implications of this card. But I did find it interesting, and I did say that it would depend on how good the Solrock was to see if this would actually see play. Now, the Solrock was finally revealed. So the Solrock, for 1 fighting damage, for 1 fighting energy, does 70 damage. Now, this number is really interesting because I feel like that's actually a pretty efficient attack. Obviously, you need to have the Lunatone on the bench to be able to use it. But what's interesting is 70 damage is actually a really good number. You know, when you're in a metagame with Dragon Bolt, you're always thinking about being 60 damage away, plus another 30 from a Munkidori, of course. But most of the time, it's 60 damage. Hey, I don't want to just give away a free prize card. At least make my opponent have to Munkidori or use something else to kill my Pokemon. So hitting for 70, I mean, you're killing a lot of different things. If your opponent buddies, you could easily just gust up a Pokemon and kill it, right? You're killing Budew, but you're also killing the Dreepies. You're also killing the Gimmighoul's and the Pidgeys. So it'll be really interesting to see if this actually ends up getting play. I actually have a feeling that Mega Lucario, I think it's going to be better than people expect, although I don't think it's going to be an S tier. I think it's going to be pretty good, and I do wonder if something like this will be played in that. So let's just skip down a little bit to some new cards. This Spiritomb seems interesting for Dark deck. So its ability, whenever your active Dark Pokemon is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, you put 1 damage counter on the attacking Pokemon. Again, unfortunately, we live in a Munkidori world, so you have to think about, hey, listen, this might sound pretty decent, like I'm doing free damage, but I'm also giving damage over to my opponent. And I think being a good player in this current metagame, you need to be able to manipulate the Munkidoris as much as possible. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I do think Dark, the thing is, I just don't think Mega Absol is going to be great. I think Marnie's Grimmsnarl is around for a little bit, and I think that helps. But as a Grimmsnarl player, adding 1 damage counter in between turns does not make or break the Grimmsnarl deck. And at the same time, I feel like I'm helping my opponent too much. So I don't know. I don't know if that's actually going to see play. We already talked about the Mega Mawile. The Dialga seems okay. I don't think Gholdengo is going to get played in anything. I mean, it's kind of interesting, I guess, but like, I think you might as well just run the Scizor and hit harder. I don't know. I'm not super impressed by that. But here's the start of where things start to get interesting. The trainers in this set are insane. And I know that whenever they come out with a new set for a new block, the trainers tend to be a little bit, I don't want to use the word overpowered, but definitely like stronger than the rest of everything in that block. These are the cards in the base set of a whole new block, so they want these to be around and used for a while. I mean, look at cards like Iono, Arven, you know, stuff like that, Professor Research reprints. These all usually come out in the first or second set because they want to, you know, make sure that you know that, hey, we want this here for the entire block. So Iron Defender, during your opponent's next turn, all of your metal Pokemon take 30 less damage from attacks from your opponent's Pokemon. You may play item cards as many as you like during your turn, which obviously that's on every item card. But what's interesting is I do wonder if this stacks. That would be interesting to know. I would think that this does stack, but don't quote me on it. Even if it doesn't stack, I could see this being used in like Arcaludon or something like that just to help like the decks that want to be tanky. Unfortunately, it's like what metal decks are out there right now. You have Arcaludon, but it's kind of dead. Metagross, you know, I don't know enough about the deck archetype to know how well it's going to do, but I just don't think it's going to be great. Although you could maybe combine it with the Genesect. One of my viewers commented and said, hey, you know, Metagross could be good if you combine it with Genesect and Mega Mawile EX. I could see that. I just don't know if, like, this actually changes anything because I haven't looked at the math. For all I know, it could. I just haven't really looked that in depth on it, but I really just think of Gholdengo when I think of metal, and I don't think that this helps Gholdengo. Gholdengo's already at, like, a weird number at 260. Putting up to 290, what are you really fixing? So, I don't know. Interesting to think about. So, the other thing I also want to bring up, too, as we're going through this, it really seems like they're really trying to push each archetype as a, like, in terms of a type. So they really want, like, a lot of fire, a lot of fighting, and a lot of, like, grass. Individual types have their own support engines. I wonder if that just leads to a more balanced meta, because then it's not like your Pokemon take 30 less damage. It's only your metal Pokemon. And maybe it just, it's an interesting thought because they've done this in the past, and I feel like they kind of stepped away from it. Every once in a while, you'll see one that's like, hey, your grass Pokemon this. But this seems like the amount of cards in this set seem abnormal to the normal, you know, type buffs that we normally see. I could be wrong on that too, but I don't know. It's something that immediately came to me. So we're going to be looking at a lot of these cards that do that. The next one is Fighting Gong. Search your deck for a basic fighting Pokemon or a basic fighting energy, reveal it, and put it into your hand. This is an immediate buff to Garchomp. I knew Garchomp was going to get some sort of support down the line because it just hits way too hard to not get at least a little bit of help. I feel like Garchomp could actually be pretty good in a Mega World if it had more draw support, because its problem is it just bricks. It doesn't get the energy. On the flip side, though, is that balanced out by the fact that it will just eventually one-shot everything in the meta? I don't know. But I do think that that's a cool card. So I'm going to make a whole separate video on Gust effects, but I do want to talk about this. Repel is a trainer. I'm sorry. Well, it's a trainer, but it's an item. Your opponent switches their active with one of their bench Pokemon. So you do not get to choose which bench Pokemon gets promoted, unlike Boss's orders. But it's still a Gust effect. I think this is really interesting putting this on an item because it's very easily searchable in an Arven world. I do wonder if Arven will rotate out and they won't put item search back in for a little bit. It kind of makes me think, because I feel like with Arven, this is just so good. But then again, if you're Arvening for this, you're also not bossing. So I feel like this is kind of a buff to decks that want to do like your TM Evo or your TM Devo or whatever. You know, stuff that actually want to use a lot of tools. Man, Arven rotating is going to be a game breaker. Like, Arven is really speeding up the game a lot right now. I actually really like Arven, but it'll be interesting to see how that gets played. I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't run a couple of these. The problem with Boss is, well, not the problem, but the thing about Boss is you're using your supporter for the turn. So you can't Boss and then also research, right? So being able to do this and then also research, like, you're getting a lot of effectiveness out of it. It just depends on your opponent's board state. This card is probably the most interesting card I've seen in a while. Lieutenant Surge's Dealings. Ask your opponent if both players may draw a prize card. If yes, both players draw a prize card. If no, draw 4 cards. I have never seen anything in the Pokemon TCG like this, and I think that this is super cool. On one hand, I could see this being a really powerful card because you're forcing your opponent to either give you a prize card or you get to draw 4 cards. Now, they also get to take a prize card. So what's interesting is this could probably play into that Acerolas or that Briar situation a little bit better, right? Especially if you're playing something like a Duskull. You really have to think twice about giving your opponent a free prize card. You know, once you get down to that 2 prize card range, you know, you're one boss away from losing potentially. Especially with the 1 prize. So late game, right? If you say no, hey, I don't want to give you a prize card because you have 4 left, or you have 2 left, or you have 1 left, right? Well, 1 left, they're going to lose. You're going to automatically lose. So late game, you just get to draw 4 cards, right? And even if you have 2 prize cards left, and then you give them 1, then they can just next turn boss up and kill one of your baby Pokemon. So this is a really interesting card, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. I'm actually very curious because on one hand, I could also just see people not liking it because you don't have control over what your opponent's going to say. Are there supporters you would cut for this? I think that's the question. And I think if you know how to use this card correct, this could be one of the most powerful cards. But we'll see. We've already seen Lily's Determination. This is interesting, the Dangerous Ruin. So whenever either player puts a non-dark basic Pokemon from their hand onto the bench, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. I feel like it kind of buffs Grimmsnarl in a way. I feel like you're just giving yourself more counters to work with, so I could see that being played and then being able to Monkey Dory away, but I don't know. This will be an interesting one for sure. I feel like I keep saying that a lot, but I feel like there's a lot of really interesting cards that you read them and you're like, oh, I don't see how this can be impactful. And then something else gets printed and just makes it broken. Or vice versa. You know, you're like, oh, this is so broken. And then it gets printed and then it doesn't get played. Like, I think Jellicent right now is like in the overrated bin, actually. Unironically. I think Jellicent is not the greatest. But, you know, again, video for another day. So let's dive down to the Mega Abomasnow. So this was interesting. For 2 water energy, it does 100 damage. Discard the top 6, and you do another 100 damage for each water deck. This can be so funny. Like, this is a deck that, like, you build it, and you put, like, 20 energy in it, and you just one-shot everything. I think this is so cool. And honestly, if you build this the right way, as long as you hit at least 2 energy out of the 6, you're still hitting pretty hard. Obviously, it's not consistent damage, right? You could just hit none. And trust me, I've been trying to play Miraidon. When I don't hit those electric generators, I get mad. But at least, you know, you've got 350 HP on here. You have the potential to hit for 600 damage, which will even one-shot that Mega Venusaur with everything on it. So, this will be very interesting. And one thing to note is that its weakness is actually not grass, it's steel. And the only steel deck around right now is Gholdengo, which is very good, don't get me wrong. But at least you're not weak to Venusaur, which is probably the thing that you beat. Its second attack is Frost Barrier. For 200 damage during your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 30 less damage from attack. So 200 damage consistently for 3 is okay. At least you have that consistent damage, because you could just hit with the Avalanche Hammer on the first turn, and then the second turn you're like, okay, I'll knock it out with Frost Barrier. Oh, I also, like, take 30 less damage. But theoretically, you're probably already getting hit for, like, at least 200 damage anyway on your next turn, so how much math is that really, like, is that 30 damage really going to save you? I don't think so. The thing you just have to keep in mind when you're looking at these Mega EX cards is, do they warrant the 3 prize cards? I think this card is funny. I think it could be, like, a pretty good off-meta deck, just a little inconsistent. Its problem is just going to be the fact that it has 4 retreat costs, Air Balloon is not going to save you, and when you're getting hit for 2 times weakness by Gholdengo, who barely has to put any cards into the discard pile to kill this, I don't think it's going to be very consistent. I think Gholdengo is here to stay for at least a couple more sets. So unfortunately, I just don't think it's actually going to be a top tier deck, but it is certainly interesting. I did want to talk about Mega Manectric EX. I actually really like Mega Manectric, so when I saw that this card came out, I'm like, please be good, because I want to play. And I think it's pretty good. So for 2 lightning energy, 120 damage during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from basic Pokemon. So that's interesting because this, like, directly counters some cards in the meta. Like, for example, Raging Bolt, you can really just shut it down from there. I wonder how Raging Bolt would adapt to that, although I'm not sure if this is a matchup it needs to worry about. Maybe it starts running some sort of evolution Pokemon. But I don't know, just interesting. It just kind of, that was like the first thing that came up to me. I'm sure there's other cases as well, but I hate Raging Bolt, so of course that's always the front runner on my mind. But actually what's more interesting is the triple lightning attack does 200 damage, and you may discard all energy attached to this Pokemon, and if you do, this attack does 130 more damage. So you are hitting for 330 damage for 3 energy, and you can get 3 lightning energy onto this Pokemon pretty easily. I actually think this has potential. The most important part I want to point out about this card is that it only has a fighting weakness, which I'm really only worried about Lucario here, and it has no retreat. So it's going to be very easy to get this set up, get some electric generators going, and just hit hard. I actually think that this might be something that Miraidon needs, even though Miraidon is not going to be the main attacker of this. I mean, obviously Miraidon's ability is just so good. I am very excited for this card, and I want to try it out, although sometimes I get a little too excited with Lightning decks. I feel like it lives and dies by the electric generator, which kind of annoys me, but it is what it is. The last couple cards I wanted to talk about were the trainers. Oh, yeah, start here. So let's talk about this trainer card, Suspicious Clock. I think it's really cool that now we're starting to see the direction that TPCI is going in. We've seen a lot of cards that have come out in this set, or even just recently, when you evolve, this effect happens. Or giving you a card like that Archeops, where when you play it, you get to devolve one of your opponent's Pokemon. This card actually makes those evolution cards better, and it makes it really interesting and kind of adds some intricacies. So by playing this card, you get to devolve one of your evolved Pokemon by returning any number of evolution cards onto your hand. So it's not even just the top one like a Devo. I mean, you can return multiple. So if you have that card, I think it's Kadabra that lets you draw, or if you're playing a card that, you know, Hariyama, when you evolve it, you get to gust out your opponent's Pokemon, you can just devolve it and then evolve another one. You just have 2 of those Pokemon, basic Pokemon, sitting on your bench, and then you just evolve the other one, right? You devolve one, evolve the other one. Like, I think that's really cool. The problem with this is, once again, we live in a Dragapult, a Marnie's Grimmsnarl, and a Munkidori world. You can easily combat this by just setting up counters on Pokemon that you know your opponent's going to want to devolve. You're just going to say, run your own Munkidori. You're right. Everybody's going to be running Munkidori. That's where we are. But I still think there's potential here. I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, which is like the 80th time I've said that this video, but I actually truly mean it. I think that cards like these are what keep the game interesting, even if it's not good. Even if there isn't a good strategy with it, like a cohesive way to make the deck work, I think TPCI needs to find ways to make this card, or I think TPCI needs to find ways to make the game more interesting. Nobody wants to play a game where every deck plays like Raging Bolt. That was the most boring part of the format last year, when everything became a one-shot like Raging Bolt. So now that we're starting to see them take some risks and try some new designs, I'm excited for it, and I think we should champion that when possible. So here's one of the biggest cards that people are afraid of, this Lush Forest. It's kind of a reprint of Forest of Giant Plants, which I actually didn't play during the meta, but I am aware of the card. Basically, each player's grass Pokemon can evolve into another grass Pokemon during the turn they play it, except for the first turn. So what's interesting about this is, you know, you still have to wait your one turn to evolve, but then the following turn you can get your stage 2 Pokemon up without having to candy and without having to do any like weird shenanigans. You just get the cards in your hand and you go. I mean, this is just going to let you set up that Mega Venusaur so fast. I don't know of any other grass cards. Maybe the Superior, if that gets played. I think this is a buff that grass needed. I don't know how many cards in the meta right now like are greatly benefiting from this. You know, Ogerpon's a very popular grass Pokemon, but that's a basic and there's no evolution to it. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head what else could be played here. I'm sure something's coming along down the lines, but this is a card that I could see wildly becoming out of control if the right card is printed. So we'll keep an eye on that. In the same vein of specifically buffing one archetype, Surfing Beach is another stadium. Once during each person's turn, that player may switch their active water Pokemon out with one of their benched water Pokemon. That's cool. This is a huge buff for Palafin. This is a huge buff for Palafin. Palafin EX is going to get pretty good with this, in my opinion. I was actually just looking at the card the other day, and I'm like, damn, I really wish there was a way to play this deck without having to constantly play Prime Catchers and switches. I think it's cool. Unless I'm misunderstanding about the Palafin deck, I think that this could be really, really fun. And then we have Mystery Garden, which we've already seen. It's the Psychic buff, the Guardy buff. That once per turn, that player may discard 1 energy card from their hand. If they do, they draw cards for as many Psychic Pokemon they have in play. I mean, it's just a Guardy buff. I mean, it's not, like, amazing, but it's good. The only thing that's nice about it is that you get to discard 1 energy, so you're adding to your discard pile a little bit easier. But let's be honest, guys. They already have an easy, like a very easy way to get their Psychic Pokemon into their discard pile. This isn't going to accelerate them that much further to the point where it's breaking the game. It's just the drawing part is the problem that's, you know, nobody wants to see. But anyway, those are the main big cards I wanted to talk about in this set. I'm super hyped for the Mega Evolution. I really feel like this metagame has potential to be a really fun one. There are some concerns that I have. Like, I haven't played it in a 3-prizer meta, but I think it'll be interesting to see which Megas actually come out on top and which ones actually get to see play. I have a feeling it's going to be a lot less than we want. You know, there's only really like 2 or 3 that I could see being really good. And then I also wonder after rotation what new cards they'll print to actually support the Megas better. And once you don't have to worry about those older EXs. I think the first round, or at least the first half of the Mega Evolution sets are going to be pretty basic and around this power level. And then we'll start seeing some weird power creep towards the end of the Mega cycle once they have cards a little bit more limited in the standard format. It'll be easier for them to balance and also easier for them to not have to worry about, you know, EXs and then Terra Pokemon and then also the Megas. So that's that. I am curious to hear your thoughts, guys, so please let me know in the comment section down below if you enjoyed this video and also what your thoughts are. What's your favorite card that you're excited for in the Mega Evolution set? Is there a Mega in particular that you're looking to build first? For me, I'm definitely building that Mega Manectric. That one just to me looks the coolest. It looks fun. It also potentially might be one of the best. I also really want to try out Mega Lucario. I don't know if that's more of a Hopium thing, but yeah. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and I'll see you in the next one.